Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Gyanadam and to this wonderful presentation here. My name is Dipali. I am a writer and artist. I work with children, and I've also become a publisher, especially after meeting Professor Martin. So from my own experience, I'd like to share that I met him 2 years ago, and the first thing I started talking to him about was his conscious template, which completely gripped me, and I was completely engrossed in this model. Basically, it's a model, it's a template, it's a graph, like a blueprint, which you can apply to various subjects from parenting, education, psychology, cultures, communities, even economics, and more. He'll tell you more about it because I really cannot justify. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Professor Martin. Professor Glenn Martin is a psychotherapist, lecturer, author and philosopher. He majored in biology and geology for the first 5 years of college before completing another 5 years in psychology. This diverse interest in the hard sciences of biology and geology and the soft sciences of psychology led to a lifelong interest in psychophysiology, biofeedback and meditation. He first visited India in 1979 after completing his undergraduate and graduate degrees. Professor Martin was certified in both peripheral and EEG biofeedback and licensed in the USA as a clinical counselor to independently diagnose and treat emotional and mental disorders. His areas of expertise include biofeedback, stress management, crisis intervention, relationships, parenting, cross-cultural differences, hospice, religion, spirituality, teaching, meditation, chronic pain, headaches, bipolar disorders, anxiety disorders, Asperger's spectrum, insomnia, and depression. As an associate professor, he taught classes at the University of Akron in biofeedback, stress management, meditation, relationships, human sexuality, dream analysis, psychophysiological disorders, insomnia, and emotional and psychological disorders. He served as the clinical director of the Counseling, Education and Meditation Center and later at the Neurotherapy Counseling Center before returning to India in 2006 to write. So from 2006 till 2013, he has written this and he's still going to edit it further. And it's a vast and a very broad model which can be applied to so many areas which I just spoke to you about. Today we're going to look at one aspect because it's really a very in-depth subject and you can't cover the whole book in about an hour. So we're going to touch upon why art, why creativity, and where does that come from through this model which he calls the conscious template. After 1 hour, we have another half an hour. If you want to have questions or an informal chat with him, he'll be available here. We have unfortunately got only a few books left after the first print. So some of them are sold, some of them are still left outside. If you want to buy any, you could just leave your name and number and we'll get that reached to you. That's about it. Have a great evening. And once again, thank you Gyanadam for organizing this wonderful event.
I'm going to make a request. Everybody sits in the tan chairs, pulls people a little bit more forward. I don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to cover it as quickly as I can. Okay. What I've done is I became interested in the chakra model in the 70s. And I came to India in '79 to learn meditation, and then because of my biological background, I became interested in biofeedback, both EEG biofeedback and peripheral biofeedback. So I'm interested in how meditation works. If you do this meditation, why does it work? And what part of the brain does it involve? I can tell you if you do this meditation, what part of the brain you're using, why it's working, and how it impacts you. And I'm interested in the difference between meditation and relaxation because there are two different things. So quickly, I mean, the chakra model originated from India, okay? And it's interesting, so many people in India don't know what it is, okay? But I'll go over it really quickly. There's 7 chakras, okay? In the first chakra, and if you read a dozen books on chakra, they will all disagree with each other, okay? It's kind of a little bit like astrology. There's a lot of disagreement. But what I've done is I've triangulated 12 different paradigms. I've triangulated history, psychology, psychophysiology. I've come down with the definitive characteristics of each chakra when they show up developmentally in children. And a lot of what I've done, the last 15 years I was in America, I specialized working with children. And with children, you can see the chakras purely as they are, uncontaminated. And they show up at very specific ages. And by studying children, you can see what characteristics are really applicable to the chakras. Okay? The first chakra is survival consciousness, is survival. You can think of the chakras as drives, as motivations. There's only seven drives, 7 motivations, okay? So you can think of this as a way of organizing all the information out there in the world. There's a way of looking. I can look at a book and I can tell you what chakra created that book. I can look at a culture and tell you what chakra that culture is in. I can even look at an ad on television and I can tell you what chakra that ad is coming from. And so and even in history, I look at history, I can tell you what chakra is being activated, is the center of gravity for that period of time, history. These chakras they tend to come out in a collective consciousness at a certain period of time historically. They show up developmentally in children at very specific times. But the first chakra is survival. An infant is in survival consciousness. And I've tied this into what part of the brain's working. So and when an infant is born, their reptilian-based brain is dominant. An infant for the first 6 months lives in a world of sensation. That's why they don't smile or giggle or laugh. Okay, but children around 6 months will start smiling. They'll start giggling. That's because the limbic system, which is the emotional brain, comes online around 6 months. And around 6 months to 2 years, you have this idyllic, innocent childhood. Okay, and what happens is from birth to 2 years, you're in a pre-mind state. It's pre-mind. The mind hasn't arisen yet. At 2, what happens? The cerebral cortex comes online. First with the right cerebral cortex, and later on with the left cerebral cortex. But what happens? Language comes up, and with language, ego comes. Before language, there is no ego, because you need language to have an abstraction of time. So at a year old, a child is living in the here and now. They're not really. The ego hasn't fully activated. At 2, the ego is fully activated. There's hierarchy, power consciousness. At 2 years old, power consciousness. This is the third drive. First drive, survival. Second drive, pleasure. Third drive, power. Okay, this is how the chakras unfold. Around power consciousness is totally self-centered. Okay, this is where the patriarch is. Okay, it's kind of a patriarchal type thing, power type thing. How you can identify power consciousness is double standard. Whenever you see a double standard, you know you're dealing with power consciousness. What happens around 7? Okay, another chakra opens up, and that's the heart chakra, and I call it social, because in the heart chakra, in power consciousness is self-interest. In the 4th chakra, it's social interest. You're now interested. It's altruistically interested in how other people are. You're willing to sacrifice and suffer. Empathy comes in the 4th chakra. Power consciousness only has sympathy. They only can feel sorry for someone, and you can only feel sorry for someone who's worse off than you. So it's a hierarchical type thing. But there's no empathy in this third chakra. Empathy comes in the fourth chakra, okay? And then the fifth chakra, this is where where doubt becomes a virtue, okay? This is where science arises. Science arises in the fifth chakra, okay? And what happens in the sixth chakra is this is where you post-mind. First two chakras are pre-mind. The last two chakras are post-mind. In sixth chakra, what I call self-realization. So it's survival consciousness, pleasure consciousness, power consciousness, social consciousness, understanding consciousness, and then self-realization. Because in the sixth chakra, you're trying to transcend ego. Okay? This is where there's a collective energy, in a sense, of trying to get beyond ego. Okay? In the seventh chakra is where integration occurs. It integrates the 6 previous levels of consciousness. So each one of these levels of consciousness has a different intelligence, it has a different value system, it has a different orientation of seeing how things are. Each one's a totally different world. So if I look at, I could actually, when I went and taught at Pune University lately to the graduate students. They got all the graduate students together. I explained to them how you can identify what level of consciousness a person, and if you can identify the level of consciousness, you know what type of therapy, what type of therapeutic intervention that you need to do at that point. Okay, so one of the things I'm covering a lot of information quickly, but pre-mind and post-mind is where creativity comes from. Mind cannot be creative, okay? No more than mind, think of mind as kind of a computer software program in a sense. Mind 1 is power consciousness, mind 2 is social consciousness, mind 3 understanding. Each one of these have a different types of intelligence. Mind 3 has what's called representational and conceptual thinking, rote memory, but there's no logic in mind 1. This is where, so a child between the ages of 2 and 5, they'll believe anything you condition them to believe. Okay, it's conditioned beliefs. It's no logic. You tell them that there's a 6-foot Easter bunny that lays eggs and delivers them, they'll believe it, you know, and they can't question it. Okay, in the fourth chakra, that's where inductive thinking comes in. You can start connecting the dots. Okay, so in a sense, in the fourth chakra, children will actually by direct experience, question their conditioned beliefs. In the fifth chakra is where deductive and abstract thought comes in. In the fifth chakra, you can challenge your conditioned thoughts by just thinking about it. Okay? In fact, in the fifth chakra, doubt is a virtue. Belief is a vice. This is where science comes in. Time-wise, okay, survival consciousness ended around 10,000 years ago during the last ice age. The ice age ended around 10,000 years ago. Between 10,000 years ago and 5,000 years ago, when the ice age melted, there was pockets of resource-rich tropical areas, which is kind of the Garden of Eden, where that mythology came from, or Paradise Lost. And this is where the matriarchal cultures came. For 5,000 years, cultures are matriarchal. This preceded marriage, and there was no concept of marriage until 3 to 5,000 years ago. There was no written language. There was no mental type thing, in a sense, used. Around 5,000 years ago, there was a written language evolved, and the patriarch evolved, and probably because of shortages, because of climate change, the matriarch cultures, they started disappearing. Now, around the time of Christ and Buddha brought in social consciousness. This is Christ 2,000 years ago, Buddha about 2,600 years ago. Forgiveness came in. There is no forgiveness in power consciousness. There is revenge. There's justice. Okay, forgiveness comes in with the fourth chakra. This is where empathy comes in. With empathy, you are able to forgive. And the fifth chakra came in with the scientific revolution during about the 1700s. Okay, the sixth chakra came in at a collective level with, I believe, with the hippie movements in the 60s. And then, I came over in the 70s to learn meditation. And that's where the West first came to India to learn meditation type thing. The seventh chakra, I believe, is just now coming in. And it's being brought in with smartphones, computers, the internet, okay? Now you can access anything immediately. I mean, you literally have all the information in your pocket, okay? When I went to college, I had to go down to college, and I would have to go through all these books, and I have to go through. Now it's all on the computer. You don't have to. I came to India 7 years ago to work on this model, and I could work on the model just with my laptop and my smartphone. It's amazing because you have access to everything. So with this access to information, what's happening is when I came to India in '79. There was a the culture was very similar. People were generally in the same level of consciousness. There wasn't too much difference from one person to another person, okay? The culture was primarily in this third chakra, second chakra, and you can see that there was a similarity. Now, any country you go to, you can find every level of consciousness in any country you go to because people have access to this. And what's happening is people watching cable television. You turn on the TV and you're watching Friends. Well, Friends is a totally different value system. Children are absorbing these value systems of all these Western movies, Western sitcoms. They're being exposed to a whole different set of values, okay? So Friends is a fifth chakra sitcom. It's about where men and women are friends. There's a whole different, but the value system is a fifth chakra. Depending on what movie you or watch, what you're watching on television, the child is being exposed to that value system. So you're not going to have a culture in the same value system anymore, in the same chakra. It's the world, there's a globalization that's occurring, okay? And it's occurring around the world, in a sense. And the values are shifting quickly. Understand that mind is think of it as a software program. It's like a computer can duplicate the thinking, the mind 1, mind 2, mind 3. You can write software programs, and artificial intelligence is coming out, okay, where soon you'll be on the phone talking to someone and you will not know if it's a computer or if it's a person, okay. What science will never do, I don't believe, is create a conscious computer, a conscious artificial intelligence, okay? Consciousness cannot be duplicated, okay, at this point. Science has no idea how to create consciousness. You can create a computer who will talk to you, it will appear that it will empathize with you, it will ask you questions, it will answer you. In fact, in Japan, in China, they're creating these little like robots, and a lot of them are like dogs or cats or something. And so for old people who are alone because there's no extended family, for them to have somebody to talk to, okay? And this is going to increase. And literally you can hold conversations with this. In fact, they've set up programs now that there's programs you can do that does therapy. It will ask you, how do you feel? He said, I don't feel well. And the computer will tell me more. And it'll actually do therapy with you. And it's shown to be quite effective in a sense. So now, if you understand, like writers are working with mind. They're working with language, okay? So you have to bring this creativity through mind. You have to bring this consciousness through mind, okay? And everyone heard of writer's block, okay? Writer's block is often what writers get. And what they do is there's a identification. If you identify with mind, then you're going to create a block. If you realize that you're not mind, but who you are is consciousness, then you can prevent some of that block. Part of that is learning to, when you, I've noticed that a lot of writers are paint. Well, painting is a good way, if you're being stuck in thinking, painting precedes thinking. So what happens is painting is more in the second chakra, okay? So it's a great way of combining two arts to maximize creativity. You can also learn meditation, relaxation, to become more creative. Because what you have to do to become creative is to step out of mind. Mind cannot appreciate beauty. If you see beauty and there's an appreciation of that beauty, that does not come from your mind, that comes from pre-mind or post-mind. Post-mind, you see a lot of this technology, that creativity that you're seeing with smartphones, computers, and things like that, is coming from more from the 5th, 6th chakra, okay? A lot of painting, art, in a sense where writing and stuff is more from the 2nd, 3rd chakra. I'm interested in technology, and I use technology. I used to have a meditation center also in America, and when EEG biofeedback came out, I realized I could teach a person how to meditate in a fraction of the time using technology. Okay, because the technology, electroencephalograph, will tell me exactly where this person's brain waves are, what brain waves are dominant, if they can shift between the brain waves, because there's brain waves are broken down to each frequency, and each frequency has a different type of consciousness to it. And I actually can teach a person to meditate in a fraction of the time than it would be. I tell people you can go off to a Vipassana retreat for 10 days for 12, 16 hours a day, but I can duplicate that generally in 10 half-hour sessions, 10 half-hour to 1-hour sessions, because the technology will tell me exactly where your brain is, exactly when you're spacing out, exactly what level of consciousness you're in. So I'm interested in technology. One of the things, if you want to be creative, it's good to learn. It's kind of like when I came to India in '79, everybody was coming here to learn meditation. Now, that's not happening as much because there's probably more meditation centers in America, yoga centers, martial arts centers in America than there is in India at this point. There's an explosion of the East has went west and the West has gone east at this point. In fact, if I'm speaking to a group of people in America, it's amazing how people understand what the chakras are. It surprises me that often, when I'm talking to a group in India, they seem to know less about the chakra model than the Western does. There's more interest in, it's like India has become interested in science, the West has become interested in meditation. So there's been this shift. So, let's see what time I have. Okay, about a half hour. I can answer, I've given you the outline of this, in a sense. I've kind of given you the 7 chakras, what the first two being pre-mind, the last two being post-mind. That mind comes in around age 2. I mean, and then at puberty, the fourth chakra comes in. About 7, the fourth chakra comes in. Around puberty, the fifth chakra comes in. Around late teens, early 20s, the sixth chakra comes in. And I believe the seventh chakra comes in the late 20s, early 30s. Your ability to integrate, and what happens is each level of consciousness believes that they're right, that they're correct, that they have the truth. This goes all the way up to, not until the seventh chakra do you start realizing that truth, there's different levels of truth. Truth is relative to certain levels of consciousness. At the seventh chakra, you start understanding that truth there's different truths, and truth is not absolute. It depends on the situation and what level of consciousness. One of the things I learned doing therapy is that if I don't figure out what level of consciousness a person is and deal with them on that level of consciousness, you can cause a person to get much worse. In fact, when I first got out of school, I actually precipitated a couple psychotic episodes with people, and because I was at the wrong level of consciousness with this person and I quickly learned that I had to understand where they were to be able to do therapy with them. Okay? And as soon as I understood that, then the whole thing shifted. And when I was working with someone dying, I was a hospice therapist for a while. I had to understand, where is this person? What is their value system? What is their perspective? How to talk to this person? Stay within their framework, type of thing. Everyone should learn if you're going to be an artist, you should learn some relaxation skills, some meditation skills. Okay. Breathing is one of the best things that you can learn. I mean, it's like learning to control your breath. The in-breath energizes you. The out-breath relaxes you. Okay. The first thing you do in life is breathe in. The last thing you'll do in life is breathe out. You come in on the in-breath and you leave on the out-breath. As long as you can suck in another breath, you're going to live for another minute or two. Okay? And what happens, if you understand that if you breathe out longer than you breathe in, it relaxes you. If you breathe in longer than you breathe out, it energizes you. Okay? So when I work with a person, I would figure out if this person's depressed, I would have them doing like an even breath, or the in-breath slightly longer than the out-breath. If they're anxious, I'd have them breathe out longer than they breathe in. And that's one of the first things that you can learn to do, is just some yogi breathing, because the yogi breathing controls the autonomic nervous system, and controls what's called the flight-fight versus flight-fight, controls the sympathetic parasympathetic system. And if you can learn to breathe, you can learn to control the psychophysiology. Now, meditation is not relaxation. Meditation is trying to be more conscious. It's trying to activate the witness. It's trying to create detachment. So when I used to teach people meditation, often there was a 6-month period where a person had a hard time learning meditation often is not relaxing for the first 6 months. Okay? And the goal is not to relax, the goal is to become conscious. So if you go off to Vipassana meditation, you're trying to stay conscious. Okay? As soon as you space out, catch yourself spacing out, you're trying to be aware that you just spaced out and been thinking about this or that for the last 5 minutes. Now with the EEG biofeedback, I can immediately, as soon as the person spaces, I immediately have feedback with the equipment that they're no longer meditating. So it tells me that because when you're learning to meditate, you really will go off be gone for 5-10 minutes, and then realize I'm not meditating, and you come back, and then you go off for another, you're here for a few minutes, and then you're off another 5 or 10 minutes. And this is what makes meditation so difficult. Learning relaxation is actually, it should precede meditation. Once you get a little bit of relaxation, you know how to relax using breath, then you can learn meditation. Meditation shouldn't be learned before relaxation. One of the things I teach people is what very short relaxation techniques. Okay? When people come in, I know when I tell people, if I say to somebody, sit down twice a day for 20 minutes, meditate to relax, they're not going to do it. But if I tell them, take out, whenever you're waiting, take that time to do your breath. Learn to do your relaxation. You're catch a red light. Spend that time relaxing, doing your breath. If you're standing in a grocery line, in a bank, if you're catching a commercial, commercials are a great time. Every time there's a commercial, spend that time doing your breathing technique, relaxation techniques. So you never really have to take out time of your life, okay? Because you're taking out whenever. And this will increase your creativity. It will keep you from getting stuck. It will also help you to appreciate art more. Because, like I said, the awareness of beauty comes from pre-mind. It doesn't come from mind. So, and to stop the mind from thinking is why it allows creativity to come through, or the appreciation of beauty, or the appreciation of creativity. Now think about movies. Okay, another art form. Okay, you can think of different movies as being one of these levels of coming. What level of consciousness created this movie? Okay, there's a survival genre. You know, the boat's sinking, the towering inferno, it's on fire, people are trying to live, trying to survive. It's all about survival. So if you're dealing with a movie and it's about survival, you're dealing with survival consciousness. That level of consciousness is what this movie's all about. Second chakra, it's about pleasure. You know, it's about hedonism. If the movie is focused on just hedonism, pleasure, you know, food, sex, whatever, there's a second chakra. Power, the third chakra. If the movie's about power, then you're dealing with that. Movies are coming from that level. Who created that movie was someone coming from power consciousness. It's about war, battle, sports, win, lose. Anytime you're having win, lose, there's a sense of you can start identifying a movie. This is coming from power consciousness, competitiveness. The fourth chakra, something about helping other people, or maybe even you know, long-term committed relationship. About is from fourth chakra. A lot of love stories. You notice that people, okay, movies, generally people fall in love. At the end of the movie they get married, okay? Generally that's the second chakra. If the movie's about what happens after they get married, you're dealing more often with the fourth chakra, okay? You see very few movies where the movie starts. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie where the movie starts with the people getting married and it tells you their story. There might be a movie out there like that, but I'm not familiar with it. But there's a sense of the fourth chakra is about helping others, doing things for other people. The fifth chakra is about science. So if you're looking at science fiction, you're looking at the fifth. You're looking at that genre. If you're looking at a movie that has to do with science fiction, you know that's coming from the fifth chakra. Self-realization, there's very few movies from that. One of my favorite movies is Groundhog Day. Okay, it's Groundhog Day is about is about transcending ego. Okay, in the fifth chakra, you're actually there's a sense of polishing up the ego. It's about what happens in the fifth chakra. You're not transcending the ego. You're not letting go of the ego. What you're doing is your self-development. You know, okay, self with a small s. Okay, you're trying to perfect. You're trying to perfect your ego in the fifth chakra. So all this self-development books, if you go to a library, and all these books are on self-development, it's about becoming, because the fifth chakra is about becoming. The sixth chakra is about being. It's not about becoming. It's about transcending your ego. It's about going beyond your ego. Okay. What happens is in third, fourth, and fifth chakra, it's about consoling your ego. Religion is about consoling your ego. It's in the six chakras. You're not trying to console the ego anymore. You're trying to transcend the ego. There's a different orientation. Its focus is in the here and now in the sixth chakra. You're realizing that there is only now. There only is now. That's what the eternal now is all about. There is no future. There is no past. The future and the past is just a thought form. It doesn't really exist. We're always here. We're always now. And when you start thinking about the future, the past, you're in mind, because that's what mind does. Mind takes you away from now. Mind is either in the future and creating anxiety, or it's in the past creating. If you're holding on to the past, you create depression. So, in sixth chakra, you're realizing that what's really important is now, and you no longer are willing to sacrifice now for later. There's a total shift in consciousness at this level of consciousness. At the seventh chakra, you start realizing that each level of consciousness has its values. It's useful. And that one level of consciousness is not better than another level of consciousness. And you start taking the gifts or the skills from each level of consciousness, and you start learning how to utilize them. Also, people will find out they have uncooked seeds in certain levels of consciousness. As you know, the gurus over here always seem to get hung up with sex and power. It's like they've reached out, way out someplace, but still they have uncooked seeds that trips them up. And the reason I put the chakras this way horizontally is because each level of consciousness has a dark side to it and a light side to it. There's not like one's better than the other. Think of this as kind of like horizontal in a sense. It's like it's not better to be 5 years old than 50 years old. It's just different, okay? It's just, and if you understand that this is not better or higher or lower, but earlier or later, what is important is to be as conscious in each level of consciousness that you can be. So you can have higher consciousness or lower consciousness in each level of consciousness. You can be unconscious and dysfunctional in any level of consciousness, and you can be conscious and functional in any level of consciousness. Spirituality, you can see at different levels of consciousness. Okay, the survival consciousness, there's not much. If you go back in time to survival consciousness or infants, the only thing that they can find is burial ceremonies. Seems to be much concept of life or death or what happens, or because this is pre-verbal, this is pre-mind, beliefs come up in the power consciousness. Okay, I got 10 minutes. Beliefs. You can't teach a 1-year-old child a belief. They're pre-mind because they're not thinking. They're just in the here and now. They're just living. In fact, children at 6 months to 2 years, they're in what's called what's called states of being. They're either love, joy, or peace. Unless something's impinging upon them, their default emotional state is love, peace, or joy. A 1-year-old feels good for no reason. Okay, because a 1-year-old is pre-mind in pre-wants. At 2, wants come in. I want this, I want that. And wants are insatiable. In fact, you give a 5-year-old 10 comic books, he'll want, if you give him 5, he'll want 10. If you give him 10, he'll want 50. If you give him 50, he'll want 100. And this is the type of thing that you see in power consciousness. This is what's created billionaires. Because how much is enough? Just a little bit more, as one multi-billionaire once said, okay? And there is no satiability. The more they have, the more they want. Because what happens before the heart opens, there is no gratitude. Okay, a child between 2 and 5 cannot feel gratitude, cannot feel appreciation. They're in a sense of a self. The world revolves around them, and that's not good or bad. It just is, because this is necessary. Each one of these unfolds in a very necessary order. Okay, so in power consciousness, the person, you have to learn to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. You have to think of yourself before you think of other people. If you can't take care of yourself, if you don't learn to develop discipline in third chakra, don't develop a sense of a healthy sense of taking care of oneself, you can't shift to the next chakra. Because each one of these levels of consciousness has a lesson, so if you have poor boundaries, something went wrong in second chakra. If you have poor discipline, something went wrong in third chakra. If you don't have a social interest in other people, then something's went wrong in the fourth chakra. So you can actually see, but you can start understanding that if I look at a book, I can look at the cover and read the front, and I can actually understand what level of consciousness wrote this book.